Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz pianist and composer Danny Green. Over the course of our conversation, he talked about his latest 2016 album called Altered Narratives, amongst many other things. He was born and raised in Southern California, went to the University of California in San Diego, and he's gone on to play all over the country and the world. He loves jazz and continues to grow into his sound. Get to know Danny and dig this interview, my friends.
Thanks for taking a little time out today.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you lining this up.
Right on, yeah. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in here and ask you, I know you're on the heels of a new album and things are usually always busy, but in your own words, give me a snapshot, an overview of activity going on in your world.
See, right now I'm just on my last day of an East Coast tour. We went out with the trio. We played a show in New York, teamed up with a chamber ensemble called Hotel Elephant, and used their string quartet, and also featured Chico Pinheiro on guitar for that. From there, we headed out to Middletown, did a show, and a show in Boston, and actually 2 shows in Boston. From there, we're going to doing a Bay Area tour in Santa Barbara and Arizona after that. So lots of touring right now. Also, we live in San Diego, so always lots of playing going on in there in San Diego. Mix of that, I do a lot of teaching as well, writing some new stuff and getting ready to, I guess not quite ready for a new album, but just getting the material together to keep it moving forward.
So let me ask you this. You got a new album that's out now, Altered Narratives. Give me an idea of what went into this album and your feelings on it.
The album includes, I believe it's 11 songs. I think the last one was 10. The music, the way I like to describe it is that every song in one way or another is influenced by things that are happening in my life as I write them. I don't necessarily write the pieces about something that just happened, but I think whatever's going on plays a role in influencing how the music comes out. As an example, I have a song on there called Porcupine Dreams, which I wrote after my son had his first nightmare about a porcupine. And just every song has like a little story. So in one way, that these stories are kind of shaping the way that I write, the way that I feel as I'm composing. And in another way, just titling the songs after these stories helps me remember them and makes me recall those feelings that every time I perform it. The nature of jazz is that we always like to change things every time we play and do it differently. So in that sense, that's where I came up with the title, Altered Narratives, or altering the story a little bit through changing the way we approach it.
It's funny, I was thinking when you said you're in San Diego, I went to the zoo with my boys this weekend, and one of my oldest son's friends kept talking about the San Diego Zoo, how cool it was, and what they had there, and all of this stuff. And I remember the visit to the zoo there in Kansas City. There was a porcupine I completely remember seeing, and I thought, God, those look sharp. And so it's weird. You're talking about the porcupine, yeah, and I keep thinking about the San Diego Zoo. So
hilarious.
Speaking of Southern California, you grow up in Southern California. What was it about your environment that you grew up in that lent you to love both music and more specifically jazz?
I don't know if it necessarily had much to do with the environment. Maybe I think I just fell in love with music. I played since I was 5. That's when I started taking piano lessons. I remember being good at it when I was a kid, but not absolutely loving it until I was about 12 when I started listening to Nirvana. And something about it, I guess the whole teenage angst thing or something caught me, and I became obsessed and just listened to it over and over and over again and learned how to play all their songs on piano. That was the first musical obsession, and then eventually I got into ska music and Latin music through the Buena Vista Social Club, and then eventually Brazilian music, and finally jazz. Each different obsession was like pretty intense. Like I'd listen to a ton of it and play along with CDs all the time. So I think that really shaped me a lot, and as well as just friends who influenced what I listened to, and just going out to concerts with friends, and I think just that whole experience is what has shaped me the most.
Did you know since you were young that you wanted to get into music, or did you have other dreams growing up?
Well, I applied to UCSD, which is where I did my undergrad, as a chem major. I think at that point I had it pretty well ingrained in my head that music is a good hobby, but unless you become a famous rock star, you can't make a career out of music. Little by little, I started convincing myself that, maybe I can do this. And so I think it was a very slow process. First, I thought, well, if I do this, maybe I'll have to take more of an academic route and become a music history professor or ethnomusicologist. Then I kind of lost interest in that and thought maybe if I do some music technology, then I can do some studio work. And I like that stuff, but I never really pursued it. What I know what I really wanted to do was be a performer. And so little by little, I became a performance major, started playing out in the scene more. Over the years, it's developed into a very nice career for me.
Speaking of the formal education environment, you went to UC San Diego, and I want to know, what did you learn in the classroom about playing music?
The first class I took was an improv ensemble. That's what they called it. It was basically a jazz band, and it was taught by a trombonist named Michael Desson. At that time, I was actually playing guitar and piano, and I already had a pianist in the group, so I played guitar. I remember I lived in the dorms. I somehow ended up with a shopping cart that I would put an amp in and carry it across campus. So I learned a lot in that class. Just one thing I learned right off the bat is I needed to get my act together and learn how to read. I quit piano lessons when I was 12 and didn't start formal training again until college, and so by that point I couldn't read a thing. That was one thing. I definitely learned a lot about playing together with other musicians, got exposed to new music. Beyond the ensemble, there were a lot of other great courses. A guy named Jason Staniak taught a course in Brazilian music. It was mainly a history of it, as well as a course in African music and the course in the blues. And each one of those were really incredibly well put together. That opened me up to a lot of new music as well. And then just learning all the theory from taking the oral skills class and then beginning theory, learning about counterpoint, and then going into classical music and romantic. All of that just shaped me a lot, especially as a composer.
Well, and then, things have taken off. You've gone out into the world and you've played your music for the world. You've been to festivals, and you played at the Why Not Room in New York City, Anthology in San Diego, the Blue Whale in L.A. What place did you play in that kind of blew your mind for the first time? You're like, wow, I'm here, I'm on the stage, I'm playing my music. Was there a venue or a moment like that for you?
Last summer I got to play at the Blue Note, and actually last January. Feels like a while ago already, but I played with a vocalist named Allison Adams Tucker, who lives in San Diego, along with Chico Pinedo, Mike Moreno, Marcelo Zottarelli, and Marco Panacea. Just being there kind of gave me that feeling that you're describing, because that room just has so much history. That was certainly one of the, as far as venues, one of the cooler experiences. But on this tour also, we played at the Shapeshifter Lab in New York, and that's a beautiful room and really cool. And every time we go on the road and play for a new crowd, it's always a special feeling.
Let me ask you this. You've won a lot of awards, too, along with all of the venues that you played at. You, at your first Jazz Honors recital, you received the Jimmy Cheatham First Place Award. Your 2009 debut album won Best Jazz Album at the San Diego Music Awards. Was there an award kind of along the same lines of the venue you played at that you got and you didn't expect it and it really surprised you?
The San Diego Music Award, definitely. I went there not expecting to win. There's a lot of incredible musicians in San Diego, and I mean, not that new in the scene, but it was my first CD. It was a huge surprise, and first time I had to get up in front of several thousand people and give an acceptance speech. So it was quite a moment, and it was my birthday.
You're a teacher, but you've had a lot of great teachers, and I noticed in your bio there was a lot of people that have taught you over the years, like jazz piano with Rick Helzer and many others. So let me ask you this: now that you're out in the world doing your thing, is there advice from a teacher that continues to kind of come up in your head as you're doing your thing?
I guess I got a ton of advice, especially from Kamal Kenyatta, who I studied with in undergrad. He, beyond just teaching me so much about playing, he always highly encouraged me to get my business act together and just be on top of that, be well-dressed for gigs, show up on time, all the things that kind of should go without saying but are important. He really encouraged to have a lot of integrity in the business, and I think those were all really important lessons, and he's always been somebody that I can go to anytime I have a question about anything music-related, whether it's about music or the business. That would be one thing. From Rick Helser, when I started studying with him, he was a very methodic teacher. Had exercises for working on chord voicings and scales and different patterns to work on, and always encouraged me to come up with at least 3 different voicings and scales for every chord in a song. I think the way he taught me has given me the most tools as I work with students. I follow a lot of the same sort of lesson plans that he did.
So what is your philosophy as a teacher?
Well, what I've noticed is that I think there's 2 main types of students. One that are the very self-motivated ones. They come to lessons, they know what they want to learn, they ask questions, and they want to impress me or whoever they're studying with. And, so they take pride in their work. They show up and they have everything down that you ask them to have down and more. And then the other type of student are the students that are still, very interested in learning, but they need a lot of helping along the way. And, they don't want to figure stuff out on their own, or they just don't have the tools yet to do that. So I think, there's those 2 different types of students. I think everyone has their own learning styles as well. For me, I really like to try to get to know the students, get to find out what their needs are, what their goals are. Usually I follow a similar pattern, a path of working on harmony, learning jazz voicings, learning scales, and trying to apply all that in repertoire. I always feel like repertoire solidifies what you do. You can do as many exercises as, until you're blue in the face, but if you don't plug it into the music, it doesn't really make sense. Going back to what I was saying at first, I think the important thing is just to find out how much explaining the students need and how much guidance they need. Some need a lot. Some, it's better to kind of give them the tools to figure stuff out on their own and help them find their own voice.
So let me ask you this. It's kind of a general question, but it kind of packs a punch. Why do you love jazz?
I think it's just it moves me. I think, and I don't love all jazz, but the jazz that I do love, I love a lot. I find it exciting. It takes me on for a ride whenever I'm listening to it. I love both the compositional aspect of jazz as well as the improvisatory aspect of it. And one thing I love is just how many different ways there are to approach jazz. I mean, there's the traditional play standards, and I love that. And I love when people are writing their own music or exploring rhythms aside from swing, tapping into just different rhythms from around the world. So I think jazz just has so much to offer. Intellectual, there's a lot of heart in it. There's a lot of history in it. And one thing I love about being a jazz musician is that it's such a great way to engage with the community and meet new people and bring people together. They take time out of their day to just come and listen to music and just enjoy it. And it's a wonderful thing to be a part of.
So let me ask you this. Who are your jazz heroes? Who have you admired the most that's inspired your playing?
I've generally been into a lot of the modern players. One of my favorite is Brad Meldau. I think he's absolutely brilliant. Aside from liking what he does so much, I think he's a true innovator, and he's created just a whole new approach for playing jazz while at the same time keeping the tradition. He's still playing a lot of the same songs as well as new ones. He brings so much of a classical element into it in a way that's so personal to him. And that's one thing I love about him. And I could say all the same things for Fred Hirsch, who's another hero of mine. I've always liked Bill Evans. Then there's a whole host of Brazilian artists, Andre Mamari, Fabio Torres from Trio Corrente. Those are two that I like a lot. Chico Pinheiro I've admired for a long time. And he's a great composer, absolutely incredible guitarist. Recently, I learned about Aaron Goldberg. I saw him play, and I'm totally digging what he's doing. I guess that's a short list for you.
Right on. So let me whittle this list down. If you could go back in time, in a time machine, the Jazz DeLorean, and see a show live, who would you go see, and where would you go?
Again, I'm very into the modern scene right now, but if I could go back and see somebody, I think I'd love to see Bill Evans. I've always liked what he does, and I think it would be so cool to see him.
Well, let me ask you this. This is my final question. Everybody has a version of who you are. Your family does, your friends do, your business associates, the people in the crowds that you play for. But who do you think you are?
I don't think I've been asked that one before. I am me. I'm a pianist. I'm a composer. I love what I do. I love meeting new people. I'm a father. I have 2 kids and a wife, and family is super important to me. Hard for me to just answer who I am, but I guess what I am is maybe an easier thing to answer, just, between being a professional musician and a family guy. So I guess on the spot, that's the best I can give you for now.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. That's good. Hey, thank you very much for taking some time today, Danny, to talk with me. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, Southern California, and places all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Danny for his warmth, his music, and his story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or visit theneonjazz.blogspot.com for all things Neon Jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.